So yeah, it was the biggest event in Twitter's history. 5,000 employees from all around the world coming together for a giant company all hand. And the CMO, Leslie Berlin, she's the sweetest girl in the world. She walks up to me and she said, "John, I have bad news. Elon Musk just canceled." And he gets real quiet at the end. And he goes, "Okay, here's what's going to happen. In 45 minutes or so, I would like you to replace Elon's keynote." I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And he goes, "I want you to show this photo and tell this story in front of my entire company. Do you think you can handle that?"
Welcome back to Stories That Move, brought to you by Dream On Studios. I'm your host, Matt Duell. Today, I'm joined by someone whose work has literally stopped people in their tracks. Astrophotographer Jon Carmichael captured the world's attention when he unveiled 108, his once-in-a-lifetime image of the Great American Eclipse. The planning behind that moment took years, and the challenges that he faced along the way were wild, and the story of how he pulled it off has inspired people all over the world. But Jon is more than an incredible photographer. He's a pilot, a public speaker, and someone who brings a contagious sense of curiosity and wonder to everything he does. He talks about dreams, connection, and what it takes to keep going when the path gets tough. I'm excited for you to hear this conversation. So let's jump in and welcome Jon Carmichael to Stories That Move. Welcome back to Stories That Move. I'm your host, Matt Duell, and I am just so excited about today's episode. I mean, this is like a Christmas present early is what it is. So we've got a really special guest on the show today, Jon Carmichael, who I just met a couple of weeks ago through the Growth Summit, through our mutual friend, Keith Sampson. Jon, is a keynote speaker, among other things, and he wasn't even planning to be at the Growth Summit, happened to find himself in Illinois at an event and realized, hey, I can add a few hours to my trip, come over and see my friends at the Growth Summit. We met through that. I started to hear his story, and within 5 minutes, I was like, "Jon, will you come on our podcast, please?" And so he so graciously agreed. So, Jon, welcome to Stories That Move.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. It's just so funny how we just spontaneously met and here we are.
We are. Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. And we found so many things in common and so many just mutual loves for things, one of which is just Jon's work also as a photographer. So Jon, take a moment, just introduce yourself to the audience and just tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the work that you're doing. What are you up to in the world today?
Well, I'm up in my camper van today in the world. So this is actually my camper van here. I spent like 3 years designing it on an architecture program in VR and hiring carpenters and things and, getting it all dialed in. So I'm an astrophotographer, a landscape photographer. And although I spent 18 years photographing professionally as a corporate photographer and political photographer, photographing presidential fundraisers and corporate events and things like that. That was kind of my bread and butter, but my real passion's always been landscape and astrophotography. So, but after, almost 20 years being out in the middle of nowhere, trying to photograph the night sky and being exhausted from camping and everything, I'm turning 40 next year. And I was like, you know what? 40 is my cutoff. I got to do this in a little bit more comfort. Yes. So that was kind of the dream of the camper van. And it's got heated floors, full bathroom, full kitchen. I mean, it's got everything you need and lots of power too for all the equipment. So yes. I'm kind of living the dream, as they say, even though it's come with plenty of challenges that I didn't expect. So, you got to roll through the punches, but yeah, I'm so excited to be here. And
awesome.
I'm also a keynote speaker. Like you said earlier, that was not my plan. That was just a total accident.
Yeah.
We'll probably
talk about. We're going to get into that today. 100%. Yeah, no, so good. Yeah. So where are you actually, parked right now? You are where?
Right now, I'm in nowhere exciting. Well, okay. I was going to say I'm in a parking lot at an Anytime Fitness so I could work out.
Yeah.
That was not a plug, but
not sponsored by.
But It's an Anytime Fitness in the middle of nowhere, kind of outside of Idaho Falls. I can't
Okay.
believe that there was a location out here, but
Yeah.
I was just in the Grand Teton National Park and in Jackson, Wyoming for about 3 or 4 weeks. I was only going to be there for a few days, and I fell in love, so I just couldn't
hung out.
leave. So
Yeah.
I just left there finally yesterday. So now
Yeah,
I'm,
no, and I know you were having some
making-
adventures up there, tracking some northern lights and getting some photos of that. So I know you had some crazy all-nighters to get some of those photos.
Oh man, I was like a giddy 5-year-old. I was, my passion for photography ebbs and flows, and that night it was like at its peak, because that's something I've been wanting to see my whole life, and that was kind of one of the main goals in the van, was to be able to stay up north in the winter climate more. I'm originally from Las Vegas, so I grew up in the desert, and then I lived in LA. I really haven't experienced a lot of winter, so that winter landscape's one of my most favorite things.
Cool.
So, and then little did I know I would get one of the best Northern Lights shows in Wyoming in their history. And it was the most incredible experience. I mean, it was truly like these lights dancing above you. And part of me was just wanting to take in the moment, but the photographer in me was like, and I've never photographed the auroras before. So there was a little bit of a learning curve there that I realized right away, that I was like, oh, wow, I actually have to quicken my shutter speed for these, but it was a lot brighter than I thought it was going to be. So,
oh man,
but
no, you and I were texting back and forth a little bit, and I was cheating. I was going iPhone mode, which is just, you throw it up. So here in Indiana, we got a little bit. We didn't get quite the Grand Teton experience that you did, but man, anytime you look up and you see something like that, it's a special thing. It's a special thing. Well, hey, so excited to dive more into your story. And I'm just going to say, for all of our, listeners today, if you don't know, we have a YouTube version of this podcast where you can see the video version. And I'm just going to encourage you, you're going to want to see the video version of this, because we're going to have some amazing visuals today throughout the story as we share some of the photos and some of Jon's incredible work. So Jon, let's rewind just a little bit. Take us to your childhood. What was childhood like for you? And what were some of those things that just kind of birthed some of those initial interests of what it meant to look up into the night sky with a camera?
Yeah, I was a curious little child, and my first passion was always flying. I was obsessed with airplanes. I had to look up anytime I heard an airplane going by, and I got to know like all the coolest airplanes. I would go to these air shows in Las Vegas, and I remember I saw the Concorde once. That's kind of how old I am. Awesome. And so I've always loved seeing the Earth from high up, and always dreamed of one day becoming a pilot, and the freedom of flying and feeling like you're a bird. And so that was the first passion that I had since day one, pretty much. And then naturally, I've always loved seeing the moon, and growing up in Vegas, you couldn't see a lot of stars. So it was quite a long time until I saw the Milky Way for the first time. And when I saw that, I was in the Boy Scouts for a little while, and we went on a camping trip, and I was like, there are this many stars. What? And you could see this milky streak across the sky, which I didn't know what it was I was looking at. But then when I was in 7th grade, I was 12 years old, and my geography teacher, Mrs. Thompson, turned out all the lights in the classroom one day, and she did a whole demonstration. And she had a student hold a flashlight across the room for the sun, had a globe, and had a baseball for the moon, and started orbiting the moon around the Earth, illustrating for us what the moon's phases are. This is a quarter moon and full moon, new moon, and so forth. And she said, every once in a while, though, the moon will perfectly align in between the sun and the Earth, creating what's called a total solar eclipse, where the moon's shadow casts onto the Earth's surface. And she said it's very rare, but if you're lucky enough and in the right place at the right time, you can actually be inside that moon shadow. And from there, you would see the entire sky in the middle of the daytime suddenly turn completely dark, like it's midnight, within seconds. And she showed us all these photos of eclipses throughout history. and little 12-year-old me was in the back of the room with my jaw on the floor. I was just
You were
totally in shock.
You
I'm
were
like,
in.
this exists?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was like, haven't I ever heard of this before? I run home from school. I'm like, Mom and Dad, have you ever seen a total eclipse, And I don't think so. Is that the same as a lunar eclipse? And I said, wait, so you've never been to totality? And my dad said, what's totality? I'm
What does
like,
that mean?
oh my God, how could you live your whole life not seeing one of these? And my dad was quite old. He was born in 1931.
Oh, wow.
So he was probably in his late 60s at this time. I'm like, you're that old and you haven't seen one of these?
Okay. Yeah.
And so since that day, I run back to school the next day. I'm like, Miss Thompson, when's the next eclipse here? And she looks it up and she goes, not for another 20 years. I'm like, 20 years? I'm doing the math.
Man.
And I'm like, I'm going to be in my 30s, I'm going to be an old man. But since that day, I was determined I'm not going to be one of those silly adults that's never seen that. So I was looking forward to that eclipse for 20 years.
Wow.
And meanwhile, I should also mention my biggest passion growing up, aside from flying, was building and launching model rockets.
Yes,
So I built dozens and dozens of them.
Yeah.
The rocket I was most proud of was over 6 feet tall and flew over 1,000 feet up in the air. It's hard to believe my parents even let me do that.
That's awesome.
It was actually harder to convince my parents to let me get my very cool Vanilla Ice haircut. I'll have to send you a photo of me with my bleached blonde hair holding one of my rockets.
Yeah.
But my most favorite rocket was called the Astrocam because it actually had a camera on the top on the nose cone.
Yes.
And
I had that one.
It would take you really?
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
man, that's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yes.
Oh man. Yeah, and this was back in the 90s, 'cause
Yeah.
I guess you're probably the same age roughly than I am, that, where we remember the 90s before internet and before digital photography. So I remember being so excited to get them developed and try to improve the rocket and to get it higher and to get better photos of the Earth from high up above. So that was kind of my way of being sort of a pilot, a remote pilot. This is before drones and stuff. Man, if we would have had drones back then, I would have been
Game over.
I would have been in heaven for sure. Anyway, so with these passions merged together, eventually, my parents unfortunately didn't have a lot of money, so they couldn't afford to put me through flight school. So I had to wait till I became an adult and find my own way to make money. And I saved up. I finally got my pilot's license, put myself through flight school, and that was the greatest joy. So I bought a powered hang glider. I guess the technical name for it is a weight shift controlled light sport aircraft. And I've flown a lot of different types of aircraft, Cessnas, and even flown in a helicopter before, but this was like the closest to feeling like a bird you can get to. You literally, like, your arms are out.
Yeah.
Like a bird, and you shift your weight, you shift your arms to steer. I mean, it really is like feeling like you're a bird, and the throttle is on is a foot throttle, so it feels like you're driving a car, but it's like Mario Kart, with the the hang glide wing, in Mario Kart. That's exactly what it is. And so that was my greatest joy. I mean, I took my friends and family up flying all the time.
Oh, how cool.
Remind me to send you some photos of that too, because it's just so cool. So these passions all merged together, and now I'm looking forward to this eclipse.
Yeah, right. So really, really quick though, I want to just kind of back up, because again, like you said, this sense of curiosity, curious child, you're leaning into adventures, in such a cool way, as a kid and then as a young adult. Did you get that from your parents? I mean, did you mentioned your dad's was a little bit older of a dad. I mean, did you just see that kind of modeled for you, or you were just kind of an outlier as far as that? That's
a really good question. I definitely got it from my dad. Okay. I probably didn't know it at the time, but my dad was a creative genius. He was, even though he was older, he died, unfortunately, but he was 81 when he died, so he had a long life. Sure, yeah. I was very young, so sadly I didn't, I lost him in my mid-20s, but but he was a painter. He was a poet. He wrote a bunch of novels. He was a board game designer. That was actually his career, as well as he was very well known in the advertising world. He founded a company called Carmichael Lynch Advertising in Minneapolis that still exists today. Unfortunately, my dad had a mental breakdown in his 30s, and he left the agency. And but that all kind of boiled down to being torn between what he wanted to do with his passions of board games and advertising. He loved board games, but he couldn't do both. And so he kind of went full throttle in the board game world. And one of his most successful board games was called Mr. President, which I actually gave one of the only unopened copies from 1967. I gave it to President Obama as a gift. And President Obama kind of indirectly saved my dad's life. It's a whole crazy story.
Okay, hold on. Just for our listeners, just get ready, because this is what it's like to talk to Jon right now. I mean, these stories, you are filled with these stories. Like that's crazy that you got to hand off a board game your dad made to President Obama, and you're saying that like that's what we all do. So cool. Okay.
Anyway, so that's when I told him more about my dad, and my dad was a board game designer, and my dad was a big fan of his, and I gave him the board game as a gift, and it was in his office for the last 2 years of his presidency, which is just mind-boggling to me. And my dad would have been just so
amazing,
floored. My dad was so into politics. So,
yes. So cool.
Anyway, that's
I love
the
it.
very shortened version of all that.
Yeah, no, so good. Okay, so obviously your dad, huge influence on your life, and amazing, cool stories there with him. So now take us to this eclipse. So you find out about it when you're 12 years old. You put it on the calendar. When I'm 32, this eclipse is coming. I'm going to be ready for it. So, talk to us about that thing and how you prepared for it and what you ended up doing.
Yeah, so, it was in the back of my mind, obviously, for a very long time. And so fast forward, eventually I become a photographer, and then I discovered astrophotography. And when I realized I could merge my passions for astronomy with photography, that was it. My social life ended. I mean, I was like out in the middle of nowhere all the time. And so over the years, I'm like, what do I do for this big historic moment? First solar eclipse to sweep across the U.S. in 99 years. And this also ended up becoming the most photographed moment in human history. I mean, that's a lot of pressure as a photographer. I mean, how do you get a unique photo that literally millions of people are also photographing at the same time?
Yes.
But with my passion for flying and maybe that Astrocam rocket was a part to do with this, I kept wondering if you could get up high enough in the air, would you actually be able to see the moon's shadow beneath you cast onto the Earth's surface, moving across our planet at 2,000 miles per hour? That Miss Thompson showed us that shadow, on the Earth. That, selfishly, I just had to see that. I wanted to witness that for myself. And as a photographer, I wondered, could I actually capture this, doing what's called a photographic mosaic, which I do in most of my work. Instead of taking one image, I take hundreds of images and piece them all together like a giant puzzle to get as much detail as possible, so you can blow it up, larger than life, and walk up this close to it and see the crystal clear detail. And so it happened. And so when I had this vision in my head of being up in the air for this, I couldn't get it out of my head. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to be in the air for this somehow. But how is a whole nother story, right? Because I did, the math as best as I could. And I realized, to get enough of the moon's shadow, because the moon's shadow is about 60 miles wide, you have to be at least 30,000 plus feet up in the air to get enough of the moon's shadow.
Yes.
So
nothing you were flying couldn't go that high.
Yeah, I couldn't fly my little hang glider. I couldn't, rent a little Cessna for this. I needed to be in a jet. And so, of course, naturally, I start, out of curiosity, looking at private jet companies and reaching out to them, trying to get bank loans. And I'm like realizing how expensive this is actually going to be. And I'm like, there's no way I can afford this. Like, I was just in a lot of debt at the time. I was not making a lot of money. And so, I kind of set it aside for a little while. And then about a year before the eclipse, Alaska Airlines did this big announcement. And they said that they were actually chartering one of their aircraft that was going to go over the Pacific Ocean for the beginning of the eclipse to be one of the first people inside the moon shadow. But it was already reserved for all these astrophysicists and astronauts and eclipse chasers and scientists and whatnot. But they were keeping one seat open to be on the flight. Nice. All you had to do was spend a 30-second video explaining why you should be the one on this plane to try to convince them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is my one shot, to be on this plane.
This is my seat.
And so I worked so hard on this 30-second video. I mean, I hired an animator for it. I learned how to compose music to make the crescendo just right within 30 seconds. I'd never done that before. I bought, a actual microphone for the voiceover, and it was basically like a commercial by the end of it, which is funny because that's what my dad did for a living, was make commercials. So I kind of felt like I did what he did,
Yeah.
Anyway, so I send it in, and I'm just so nervous because they didn't announce the winner until less than a week before the eclipse, and all my eggs are in this one basket.
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah.
And this is just a normal flight. So, or this is just, this is all my eggs are in this basket, and this is just, I'm in New York City. I'm nowhere near the moon shadow path going through the middle of the US. So a lot was at stake, and they finally announced the winner, and I lost. And I was so devastated and annoyed because the person that won, it was just a terrible video. I'm saying that unbiasedly, like it was literally just somebody talking on a webcam without any editing or anything. I'm pretty sure she went over the 30-second limit. I was just very annoyed, and I'm literally trying to contact these Alaska Airlines executives, email addresses like, are you sure you didn't see this video? I worked so hard for this.
Yeah. Oh,
and
man.
So now I'm laying in bed just depressed, couldn't get out of bed for days because I'm just thinking it's all over, and one day I finally roll out of bed and I think, you know what, I'm going to look at all the commercial flight paths around the whole US, hundreds of flights, if not thousands, and comparing them to the moon shadow path. And I immediately am pulling my hair out because I'm like, trying to do the math. Okay, these planes are going roughly 500 miles per hour cruising speed, and the moon shadow is going 2,000 miles per hour. So to intersect these flights just right, if it's a minute delayed, it's over. And so, But right before giving up, I found one flight on Southwest Airlines, and this flight was going from Portland, Oregon to St. Louis, Missouri. And my dad was born in St. Louis. I've always wanted to go there, especially since he passed away. And my dad's grandson, my nephew, lived in Portland. He was an adult, he has a house and kids and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I could stay with them the night before. It felt meant to be. There's literally one seat left, it said online. So I book it without thinking. Now I have to book another flight to get to Oregon from New York across the country, which also this ended up becoming the biggest travel day in U.S. history. Millions of people were trying to travel to this little path.
And you're figuring all this out and making these decisions. I mean, within days of this eclipse happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I'm reaching out to friends, like, can you help me find a flight, and this and that. And then my friend found this flight path, and I was like, okay, let's look into this. And we're like, wait a minute, this could be. So yeah, I mean, I was putting my all into this, reaching out to pilot friends, whoever I could. So I was really scrambling. So I booked this other flight. I get to Oregon the day before. But the biggest thing I'm nervous about is Southwest Airlines, and Southwest doesn't have any assigned seating. You get assigned like group A, B, or C, right? Yeah. And I get assigned group C, seat 18. And I'm like, I'm going to be the last person on this plane. I'm not even going to get a window seat. Right. Not even, especially a window. I needed a window that's up front so that the wing isn't in the way of the shot,
Yeah.
So all these obstacles in my way, and it's just a normal flight. So I brought $600 cash with me, ready to bribe somebody for their window seat.
Nice.
Yes. Like, you got to do what you can, like years in the making, like you've come this far.
Oh, yeah. You've been thinking about this for 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. What's another $600 after thousands on these flights and all that? So So I get to the airport, and I don't know what the odds of this happening are, but that Alaska Airlines flight with that contest happened to be leaving out of the same city, out of the same airport, out of the same terminal, out of the gate right next to ours. And they're having this huge eclipse party. Okay. I'm talking literally a red carpet event and everything. I'll have to send you photos of this, because you've never seen this happening at an airport, I guarantee you.
That's
news cameras
crazy.
everywhere, a whole step and repeat red carpet thing. And I see the person that beat me right there in front of me.
Excuse me, your video is terrible.
I know. So I turn around and I look at our gate, and it says that our flight is 25 minutes delayed. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Now I'm trying to rub elbows with these Alaska Airlines people. Like, are you sure there's not an empty seat? Like, I've got $600, I'll give it to you. And they're like, oh no, we're definitely full. And they're all celebrating and cheering and getting on board. And I'm freaking out, right? I'm giving you the longer version here. That's what podcasts are great for,
absolutely.
Right?
It's the long form. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't normally get to share some of these details on stage. But so I'm stressing out because, 25 minutes delayed, and, we're going to depart roughly an hour before the eclipse, but now we're only going to be departing like 35 minutes before the eclipse. Are we going to be high enough? Are we going to be in the moon shadow in time? I'm debating whether or not I should leave the airport, catch an Uber, and drive south 10 miles to at least see this eclipse from the ground.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I'm really torn, right? But finally, a flight attendant comes on to the intercom, and she says, "Thank you so much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. There's actually a reason why we've delayed your flight today. Most of you probably heard by now this very historic moment. For the first time in 99 years, a total eclipse going across our country. And these three gentlemen standing next to me here are three executives from Southwest Corporate that flew out from our headquarters in Dallas to be on the flight with us today. And they brought eclipse glasses with them, and all the drinks are going to be free on today's flight. They're eclipse themed drinks. So, Bloody Mary is going to be called a solar flare or whatever. And we want you to have a great time. They're all free. But the biggest news of all, we actually intentionally delayed the flight just right to make sure that we'd be inside the moon's shadow."
Yes.
Oh, thank God. I'm so relieved. This was the whole point of all this, right?
Yeah.
So now I just started thinking I should really introduce myself to these executives, right?
Yes.
But first I decide I'm going to get all my camera gear out of my bags, these big lenses and camera bodies, and throw them over my shoulder to show maybe I look legit. Maybe I know what I'm doing.
Around a little bit. Yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm wearing my what's now my Lucky NASA t-shirt, and I kind of nervously. I'm a bit of an introvert actually, so I nervously walk up to them and I ask them. I introduce myself and I show them my Alaska Airlines video, because it shows some of my photography work and my story. It's only 30 seconds, and they said, "Those are your photographs in that video?" I said, "Yeah, and you were supposed to be on that flight, but you're on ours instead, and you flew across the country to be on this flight to take photos of this?" I said, "Yeah, but I'm in Group C, and I really need a window seat." And they're like, "Come with us." I'm the first one on the plane before they started boarding anyone, and they introduced me to the entire flight crew, and they said, "Listen, we need to help this guy out. He's flew across the country for this." And they introduced me to all the flight attendants, even both of the pilots.
Oh, wow.
And they said, "All right, let's help this guy out." And they said, "Pick whatever seat you want." I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? This is like dream come true. So now my next goal is to find the cleanest window.
Okay.
So I'm looking through all these aisles, and I run back to the front of the plane and I said, "You guys, I can't shoot out of any of these windows. The outside of the plane is dirty. Like the outside of the windows are dirty." And the captain overhears me, Captain Jeffrey Jackson, changed my life. He wasn't even supposed to be the captain that day. I found out later, by the way. The captain called in sick, and so he was the fill-in. Thank God, because he was the coolest guy in the world. And he said, "I might be able to get your window clean for you. Why don't you sit on the left side of the plane in row 1? So he gets all these cleaning supplies out of the cockpit, and the captain himself gets out of the plane using the moving jetway thing you get on the plane with, and he moves and he reaches over and he washes my window from the outside of the plane for me. I couldn't believe it. And I'm going to send you that photo too, because if you look behind his hand, that is the Alaska flight.
Oh,
and
okay.
It was like the most amazing, just weird moment for me, because I immediately thought of this quote by the Dalai Lama. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
You should read some of his autobiographies, by the way. They're amazing. But his two big passions, by the way, are astronomy and photography. So, of course, I like reading this stuff.
Yeah.
But very curious man. But anyway, he said in one of his books, he said, remember that sometimes not getting what you want can be a wonderful stroke of luck. You know, here I was literally 20 minutes ago, devastated, on the verge of tears, just thinking it's all over.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I'm getting treated like royalty by the entire flight crew, even some passengers going out of their way to help me.
Is cleaning the plane for me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so I'm looking at that Alaska flight thinking, thank God I wasn't on that flight. And of course I was stalking their social media later, because I want to see what I missed out on. And if I would have gotten what I wanted more than anything and been one of those people and won that contest, that flight was flown over the ocean. They weren't even over American soil, but they were covered in clouds and fog. And the girl that beat me in the contest was sat right over the wing, completely obstructed. So if I would have gotten what I wanted, I would have had nothing. And it turns out that our flight was the only commercial flight in the entire continental US that was inside of the moon shadow that year. This was in 2017, before 7 years later, the next eclipse. Now it was like a big trend 7 years later. So I just can't believe how well this is going, right? The captain's cleaning my window.
Yes.
I'm like in the best seat possible. So now I just started thinking I might as well ask for more. So, it's going so well.
I've come this far. Yeah.
What's the harm in asking for a little bit of some ridiculous requests? So I start collaborating with the captain. I said, okay, look, I've been visualizing this since I was 12 years old. I really want to make it look like we're in space, because the moon shadow is going to block out the atmosphere. So it's the only time you're going to ever be able to see through the atmosphere in the middle of the daytime is during a total eclipse. But the big thing is the moon shadow is going to be beneath us. And that's why I want to be on the plane for this. I want to get the moon shadow moving across our planet. So I need to get at least 180-degree view of the Earth. But shooting through this little window, I can't angle the camera and do that. So is there any way while we're in the moon shadow you could kind of turn the plane around? And he's laughing right in my face. He's kind of rolling his eyes. This is obviously an absurd request, right?
Right.
He's like, do you realize I would have to get approval by air traffic control to do that? I was like, I know, I'm actually a sport pilot. I'm embarrassed to even be asking this. And he's like, I mean, considering this historic event, all these folks are so excited. We've got some executives on board. I'll tell you what, I will ask them, but please don't get your hopes up. That's a very slim chance. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So we climb up, we go to 35,000 feet cruising altitude. And it's about 5 or 10 minutes away from totality, where it gets totally dark, where the moon completely blocks the sun.
Yeah.
And a few minutes beforehand, he comes on to the intercom. He said, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're a few minutes away from totality. I'm going to do something called an S-turn maneuver. And I'm like, I know what an S-turn maneuver is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is he going to do it? And I'm sweating and shaking and trying to get my camera gear all ready. I've been preparing my whole life for this. And and as soon as he starts banking the plane, I realize he's not turning the plane sharp enough or for enough time. I'm not getting enough of the Earth in. The eclipse is too high up in the sky. It's getting warped in the layers of plastic in the window. It's not just solid glass. There's all these layers of plastic warping the image.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why I couldn't angle the camera myself.
Right.
And he had to angle the camera for me so I could stitch together a bunch of photos together. So obviously it's out of my hands now. He's not turning the plane enough, and I'm going to try to do my best, right? But all of a sudden, the flight attendants, they're in the jump seat right in front of me, facing me, since I'm in the first row. And they get a call from the captain, and she goes, John, the captain wants to know, how was that turn? I was like, are you kidding me? This is actually turned into the private jet I couldn't afford.
You got the private jet, yes.
Whoa. I was like, well, actually, since he's asking, it wasn't good enough? He said it wasn't good enough. It's got to be a much sharper turn. So he gets approval again by air traffic control, like on the fly, and he climbs up another 4,000 feet, all the way to 39,000 feet to avoid the air traffic. And he ended up turning the plane around 5 times while we're in the moon shadow. And he sent me the flight path later. I'm going to send that to you as well.
Yeah.
And the flight path is so hilarious because you can see the little practice turn in Oregon. And as soon as we're crossing the border of Oregon and Idaho, that's when he really does it. And the last turn was so sharp. Thank God he did that, because that was the only shot I got of the eclipse itself, because I still was struggling getting that was obviously the most important puzzle piece of the whole mosaic.
Right.
The actual eclipse.
Yes.
And we're moving at 500 miles per hour, and so the one shot I got, all thanks to flight attendants helping me and pointing it out.
Yeah.
The one shot I got happened to be, I didn't realize this until going through the images later, but I happened to get what's called the diamond ring moment, the last sliver of sunlight that's shining through the canyon walls of the moon's surface right at the end of the eclipse.
Wow.
And right before it, all gets all bright again. It lasts for a half second, and that was the only clear shot I got. It just felt so meant to be. And it was the clearest weather I ever could have asked for too, by the way. And I'm sure you're going to reveal the photo to people.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
But that river in the photo is the Snake River, which I'm literally right on the Snake River right now.
So,
so
cool.
It's really cool. It's all coming together. And so that river, that was also where Evel Knievel had his famous, he almost died, broke every bone in his body. Anyway, so the Snake River, that's the border of Oregon and Idaho. So I happened to get the shape of 2 U.S. states for what ended up being called the Great American Eclipse. Wow. And the clearest weather ever, especially for the Pacific Northwest. I mean, I just couldn't, it all felt meant to be. And I personally felt like my dad might have had something to do with it. He and I were planning on seeing this eclipse together, and unfortunately he passed right before it. But that's essentially
amazing.
What the story is. And little did I know what I'd be getting myself into, though.
Right. Well, we're going to get to that in a second, but the photo itself, as people are looking at it, again, you can see the Snake River, you see the earth, you see the moon's shadow. Describe that just thin blue line you're seeing that's happening there across the middle.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that, because that is, for me, such an important, vital part of the photo, because, that thin blue line in our atmosphere, that's the only thing keeping us alive, and so it's crazy, because when you're looking at the image, so the bottom right part of the photo, that dark area in the bottom right, that's the moon shadow beneath us, right?
Yeah.
But also the moon shadows above us blocking out the atmosphere. So it's kind of like an Oreo cookie, right? Where everything that's illuminated is the cream filling.
Yeah.
That's the best analogy I could come up with to try to illustrate it, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's, you can see through the atmosphere in the middle of the daytime, all because the moon shadow's blocking it out for us. And it really makes you realize how thin that atmosphere is. And so I was originally going to unveil this photo at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and the director, Neil deGrasse Tyson's the president there in the Hayden Planetarium, and the director of astrovisualization at the museum, Carter Emmert is the most amazing human. He's one of my favorite people, and he gave a great TED Talk too, which you should check out. But he was one of the first person to see the image before I unveiled it to people, and which was such an honor of mine, because I was so inspired by the work he does. He pretty much designs all the planetarium shows around the world, actually.
Incredible.
And anyway, so he called the image the ladder to space, which meant the world to me. He said, I can't believe he even said this, but he said, in a lot of ways, this is better than images we actually take from space, which I could never process fully, because that's absurd to even say that. But he made a good point. He said, this is at cruising altitude on a commercial airline. We've all been at this altitude, so we can relate and appreciate how close the ground is, but also see how close we actually are to space. We're already in space, right?
Yes.
We're on spaceship Earth, if you will.
Right.
You know, we're on this floating rock, and the only thing keeping us alive is that little thin blue line in our atmosphere.
Wow.
I can't tell you how much work it took to convey that, you know, to get that right.
It is so
it just makes you realize like how fragile that is, and that we need to do a better job of taking care of the planet so we don't burn ourselves to death.
Absolutely.
Not to be dramatic.
Oh my god, no, but man, such a beautiful image and just so rich with so many things. So I mean, and here's the the question, last question I want to ask about the flight, and then I want us to move into the accidental launch of your public speaking. But I'm just thinking about, again, as somebody who has, I've done more video of events. I started in sports broadcasting, and I know the pressure of capturing a moment and focusing on a moment. And like, you know, you're looking through the viewfinder and you're like, it's on me. I can't miss this. I'm dialed. And I'm just thinking, you're on a plane full of people, executives, they're drinking solar flares. They've got, I mean, for you to be present in that moment, like were you able to be present in the moment? I mean, was it one of those things of like on the back end, it was like, I just got to decompress and like, what just happened? Or was it like, you're actually looking through the window, seeing it and feeling it? Like, what was that like for you?
Sadly, no, I couldn't really be in the moment because I was so stressed out.
Right.
I only had, you know, in the US for that eclipse, the maximum totality you got if you were like in the right spot in Wyoming or something was roughly 2.5 minutes, right?
Okay.
If you were lucky.
Yeah.
We got 3 minutes of totality because we were flying with the moon shadow. So we had the longest totality, which those 30 seconds were crucial. Every second is so crucial. And so I am just literally utilizing everything I've ever learned in my, 13-year career at that point, you know, in those moments. And I was just trying to get all the data in. I was trying to get all the puzzle pieces. I ended up taking over 1,200 photos in these few moments, and I had 3 cameras going at the same time, one suction cupped here, you know, and all. And I only had one moment where, you know, I was focusing on doing one thing, and the flight attendants were like, "John, look up there. The eclipse is right there in the center." And as soon as I look through the window, I see it right there, and it was my first time seeing it with my naked eye. Something I always dreamed of looking at. I mean, when you're in, I should clarify, because I'm sure there's some listeners that might not know the difference between 100% totality during a total eclipse and even 99% totality. It's literally a night and day difference. For example, my nephew, who I stayed with the night before, I'm like, "Man, what are you guys going to do for the eclipse?" They said, "Well, we're at like 97%, so we'll just watch it from our backyard, you know, how convenient." And I'm like, no. Literally, if you drive south just like a few miles, you will see something that will change your life. I'm telling you, it is truly indescribable. I mean, when you're in the actual totality zone inside the moon shadow, you take your eclipse glasses off and you can actually look at the sun with your naked eye, and you see these incredible prominences shooting out, and you can see the sun's corona, the atmosphere of the sun, and like it's unlike it's like looking at the eye of God. I mean, you just can't even describe it. Photos cannot do it justice. And so I'm seeing that for my first time, and I was so awestruck, in all sense of the word awestruck, that I almost forgot to take the photo because I was so just like captivated. And so that was finally, I was like, oh God. And so as soon as I take that one shot, the only shot I got, that was the last moment right before the end of it, when I got the diamond ring moment. Amazing. It was truly remarkable. So I encourage people, this sounds weird coming from a photographer, but I encourage everybody to go travel to an eclipse. There's going to be one going through Spain and Iceland next August. There's another one the year after in 2027 going through Egypt. That's going to be very cool. But I encourage people, I know it's very tempting, especially in today's world. We all have cameras with our phones, you know, which are great cameras now. But like, please just set your camera aside and just enjoy the moment. You know, like
there are people like Jon out there shooting it for you. Just you get the photo later
I'm
and enjoy
sacrificing my time to do that. I dream of one eclipse that I'm not going to photograph so I could just enjoy it, you know? And so I just really encourage people to, first of all, go out of your way and travel to totality. It puts most people to tears. I mean, my nephew ended up waking up I think they were like 3 and 5-year-old daughters at the time, woke them up at 4 a.m. to drive south, you know, to beat the traffic. I mean, and they left me a voicemail. So by the time I landed in St. Louis, they were in tears like, wow, thank you. Because this was unlike anything I could have imagined. Amazing.
So, okay, last thing, I don't want to miss this because I think when people hear you took several photos, you stitched them together, they might be thinking like 6, 10. No. How many photos did you take and stitch together for this finished masterpiece?
So total photos I took were about 1,200 photos. I didn't use all of them.
Sure.
Yeah. I had to use just a small section because even though, so the window in the plane was still very hard to capture out of. So even though the captain washed my window, you know, there's still a lot of inconsistencies and smudges and stuff. So, and that's one of the reasons too, that even though it's a wide angle photo, it's almost a 180-degree shot. Every single photo was taken, zoomed in at, you know, up to 200 millimeters.
Yeah.
So that was so I can get all that detail, but also the more zoomed in you are, because of the depth of field, the blemishes on the window vanish almost fully because it's focused, you know, on that. So you understand that. It's kind of hard to explain that.
No. Yep, I get it. Cool.
So I took all of these photos. I just wanted to get all the data in, the whole Earth and the moon shadow and everything. And then once I felt like, okay, I'm pretty sure I got that, then my sights were toward the sky for the eclipse itself. And so I never counted how many I ended up using. My guess would be around 800 probably. That's total for the mosaic, and I was bracketing 7 different exposures plus or minus 10 stops for each image. I mean, I bought the fastest memory cards possible to process all the raw footage, you know, back to back for 3 minutes. So it was a lot, and I thought I could maybe quickly piece this all together to get it online as soon as possible. You know, in today's social media world, it's like, got to get it out right now. But I ended up taking all year piecing all these together. I was rushing to get it done in time for the 1-year anniversary when I was planning on unveiling the eclipse to the public. So, and I got it done just in time.
Amazing. So let's talk about that. So you're a couple weeks out from your unveiling. You are also one of Twitter's corporate photographers, right? You're working used to be. You're working an event for them where they've got 5,000 people that they've brought in for this event. So share that moment. You're just there to do a job. You're there to take some more photos, but a whole lot of things happen that really flipped the script for you.
Yeah, this moment, man, changed my whole life. So it was the biggest event in Twitter's history. 5,000 employees from all around the world coming together for a giant company all hand and week-long event. And my job's to document all that. It was very stressful, a lot of pressure. I had to hire, you know, a team of photographers to be in multiple places at once. And the big surprise, everything was a surprise for the most part for the employees, but I had to know what all these surprises were. So I'm on a conference call with the Twitter's event team, you know, and they said, okay, the big surprise at the end of the week is Elon Musk is going to be the surprise closing keynote speaker. Now, this is years ago, back when everybody at Twitter still actually really liked Elon.
A different version of Elon.
Before all the drama, when he took it over and fired everybody, you know. So, and I also was a big fan, obviously, as a space and rocket enthusiast, you know. And the whole year I'm working on this image, it's so funny because I was reading this biography about Elon written by Ashley Vance, and Southwest Airlines is actually mentioned in Elon's life story many times. because back in 2008, during the recession, his rockets kept blowing up. His Tesla cars were also melting or blowing up, and like all of his investors were bailing out. He was losing all of his money. And so he started flying Southwest Airlines instead of his private jet because he couldn't afford it anymore to go to his headquarters, just like how I flew Southwest instead of a private jet. We have a lot in common.
You and Elon.
No, we don't.
Yep.
No, but and so Southwest Airlines was actually part of their original mission statement. SpaceX's first mission statement since day one, according to Ashley Vance's biography, was to one day become the Southwest Airlines of space in terms of affordable space travel. And I'm like, how crazy is that? My photo is literally the Southwest Airlines in space.
Yeah.
Because it looks like I'm in space. Everybody online thought it was a fake image because it's like, you're in space, like you couldn't have been on an airplane.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of all of it. And so I thought, man, I would love to get some kind of connection to Elon. I think maybe he would appreciate this story and how like stubborn and how I persevered, and all that, but also the Southwest Airlines tie-in. And all of a sudden I find out 2 weeks before the anniversary of the eclipse, when I'm planning on unveiling it, I find out he's going to be the keynote speaker at this event. And I know how my job goes. It's going to be my job, most likely, to be backstage in the green room, taking photos of Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, hanging out with Elon, getting photos of them together. So I know for a fact I'm going to have this private audience with him.
Yeah.
But, if I'm lucky, I get 2 minutes to talk with him, right? It's not enough time to actually tell him this story. So I thought, maybe I should write him a letter. And so, but I was like, man, I would love to give him a print of this. Maybe I'll even give him print number 1, the very first artist proof of this, which, is special, could be valuable in a lot of ways. And so, but I didn't want to give him this big print, but I didn't want to give him a little tiny print either. So I developed this weird looking print that was printed really high quality, prints with laser instead of ink, burns onto crystal and UV protected acrylic. And I went all out with this.
Right.
And
you're not handing Elon Musk a 4x6. You're going to do it right.
So,
yeah.
So, but it was created in this weird way where it folds together in thirds, kind of like a letter you get in the mail. So, dear Elon, you open up the first flap and there's my letter to him with the story and all this. And when you open it up all the way and lay it flat, the seams snap together with these small magnets and it's almost perfectly seamless. So it's a decent sized print.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went way...
Yeah.
I put way too much thought and money into this. I worked with the best framer, Lamont Photographics in Manhattan, and I went all out. I got it done just in time. Flew out to San Francisco from New York for the event, and the whole week I'm just kind of rehearsing in my head, like, what am I going to say to Elon when I meet him?
Yeah.
And then the final day arrives, and it's about an hour before Elon's supposed to show up. And the CMO, Leslie Berlin, she's the sweetest girl in the world. She walks up to me and she said, John, I have bad news. Elon Musk just canceled. Oh. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, man, this felt so meant to be. And then like, I was so annoyed and I'm like, why did you have to cancel, man? I thought like this was gonna like, I was so excited about it,
Yeah.
And so like, what in the world am I going to do with this print now? But, Jack Dorsey, I didn't know Jack too well over the years, just from working here and there
CEO
and
of
passing
Twitter.
and taking photos of him. Yeah. And so, but Jack was on stage the majority of this week, and this was a very private event. The press didn't even know this event was going on. And so he's just being very transparent and open in front of his company, talking about their weaknesses, how can they improve, and how to keep the world united and connected, and talking about oneness and connectedness and all these concepts that I'm really passionate about, having this like cosmic perspective on the world. And I just kept thinking, you know what? I think Jack might really appreciate this image and this story. I think I want to give this first artist proof to Jack instead. You know, they've been my client all these years. This would be a special little way to say thank you.
Yeah.
And so I go upstairs to this giant empty ballroom to get this quiet moment, you know, and I decided to write this letter to Jack instead. And as soon as I write the name Jack, which is so weird because that was my dad's name, as soon as I write his name, Jack walks into the ballroom and he's by himself. I never see him by himself. And he's walking right past me. And I'm like, hey, Jack. And he goes, yeah, what's up? I'm like, that's so weird. I was about to write you a letter, and as soon as I write your name, you walk in the room, and he goes, is everything okay? And I said, yeah, here, open this. And he opens up, it's heavy, it's mounted on metal and all this. And he opens it up. He goes, what is this? I said, do you remember the Great American Eclipse last year? He goes, yeah, it was the biggest trending conversation in Twitter's history. I mean, it like blew up Twitter.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, I never realized that. Well, I took this photo from an airplane, and he goes, wait, this is a photograph? You took this? How did you get this photo? It looks like you're in space. And so he wants to know the whole story, all the details. I tell him the whole story, right, that I just shared with you.
Yeah.
And he gets real quiet at the end and goes, okay, here's what's going to happen. In 45 minutes or so, I would like you to replace Elon's keynote. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he goes, I want you to show this photo and tell this story in front of my entire company. Do you think you can handle that? And in my head, I'm thinking, hell no, I can't handle that. Like, are you kidding me? I've never given a speech in my life, and my first speech ever is going to be in front of 5,000 people without any rehearsal or preparation whatsoever, and replacing Elon Musk. Are you kidding me? So I'm like freaking out, right?
Yeah,
but this is
totally.
the CEO of the company, I'm like trying to look all confident, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that, sure. And all of a sudden, like, he sends the thousands of people out in the commons area so we could work with the producers. And, they've been planning every minute of this for the last year and a half. And all of a sudden we're blowing up the whole show. And he wants me to show some behind the scenes photos, and I run up to my hotel room to get my laptop and get a high res image of the eclipse and try to get it on the screen. And it all happens so fast, right? Like, before I know it, Jack's up on stage introducing me and gave this ridiculous introduction, like, this is bigger than all of us. And, and he gave away the surprise too. He said, so Elon was going to be a surprise closing keynote right now, and he just canceled an hour ago. So he's disappointing everybody.
Right.
So instead, here's this guy.
Here's Jon.
Instead, here's this guy, our photographer. He's like, how many of you know photographer Jon? And like 3 people are like, woo.
Give it up to the people
the
in the
events
back.
team know me.
Right.
That's it, And I am literally shaking. I've never been so terrified in my life. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I just agree to? Like, what is about to happen? I'm used to being behind the camera, like, I'm my own little introvert. I'm in my own bubble. Like, I'm the observer, Yeah. Anyway, so I get up on stage, and I'm like, okay, they say you're supposed to imagine the audience in their underwear, and I was like, that's not working. Like, none of the techniques I've heard work.
Right.
And I get up on stage, and the lights are super bright, so you can't quite see the whole room, which is helpful because it doesn't feel quite as daunting.
Yes.
But I see Jack right there in the front row, Jack and Leslie, the CMO, right there in front of me. And I'm like, okay, all you're doing is just telling Jack the story like you just did, no big deal. I'm really trying to play these mental gymnastics in my head. But it somehow worked because all of my nerves just suddenly vanished, and I just became so present and calm and collected in that moment. I became so connected with the audience, and we ended up having this beautiful conversation essentially, and it turned into the craziest moment. It was like everybody just started crying, and it was like multiple standing ovations. I mean, it was ridiculous, and everybody's like, they were crying, and they were making me cry. I couldn't even talk anymore. I mean, it was just the most beautiful moment of my life, and it changed my life. This is how I accidentally became a keynote speaker now. So
it's unbelievable.
And little did I know that I'm like on the road, like full time now, giving keynotes for healthcare workers and leadership and CEO conferences. And I mean, it took a lot of getting used to, at first, but I love doing this now more than anything in the world. This is a passion I never even knew I had that is incredibly rewarding to be able to, I realized like I love telling stories. I just usually do it through my photography. So this way I can but photography is a really lonely journey. I mean, especially astrophotography, where you have to be out in the middle of nowhere, away from light pollution to get photos of the galaxy and whatnot. And then when you're done taking photos alone in the middle of nowhere, you're in front of your computer alone working on the images, so So it's really incredible to take these isolating moments and be able to have the privilege to be on a platform and to share what it means to me. And it's been really inspiring for people. I never had any clue that this story or any of these stories that I share on stage could be inspiring for people. But now I just have this.
I love that. I
this
love
huge
that.
sense of responsibility, it feels like. So
Yeah.
So you never know. Back to that Dalai Lama quote. Sometimes not getting what you want can be a wonderful stroke of luck, because thank God Elon canceled that day. I was devastated and so heartbroken, but it changed my whole life.
Yeah.
You know?
Amazing. No. And when you and I met and we got to spend a little bit of time together just a few weeks ago, and you shared this story with me again, like I understand the pressure of these events. I also understand the pressure of what it means to stand on a stage and speak to people. And as you're telling me, like, this is the first time you've ever done this, I'm like, what? So I went and found the video on YouTube the next day and I watched it. And man, I'm telling you, everything you described, you feel it in the video. You feel the audience just tracking with you and just dialed in. And I think in some ways, you know, Jack did such an unbelievable favor to you in setting up the talk the way that he did, because it was like the audience was with you the second you stood on the stage. And then it was like you did such an amazing and beautiful job telling your story, and just so humble and just, hey, I just lived through this experience. And I heard you on another thing share, like, you weren't even sharing the story of this photo until you're kind of deep into the editing, and you shared with some family and friends, and they were like, wait, what? John, you need to tell this story to people. So I think just to see the power of that and see that room respond and the standing ovations and the tears, you definitely felt it. And then Jack gets back up after you're done, and he then relates what this means to Twitter as a company and to the group, you know, using your photo as this unbelievable teaching message. So man, just so cool to see somebody who, like you said, you've kind of maybe hid behind the camera for a number of years of your life, and you got this moment to now elevate and share your story in such a cool way. So really, really cool.
Yeah, I pinch myself all the time, and like what you said earlier, I never thought anything special about the story. I'm such a stubborn person. Like when I have this vision for an image, like I have to freaking get it captured. And so I was just that day on the plane, I'm just trying to do whatever it takes to make it happen. Yeah. And so, which is so weird because I'm not really an assertive person, but first I have this other side to me. Like when I'm focused on wanting to achieve this thing, it's like,
yeah, you're going to fight through every
what's
obstacle.
The harm in asking, right? And people want to help too. I never could have achieved this photo on my own. This was all thanks to these silent heroes in the airplane that day. These flight attendants and the captain and the first officer, everybody, but even some passengers, these perfect strangers that went way out of their way to help another stranger achieve their dream, their goal, to no benefit of their own. And it goes to show that passion is contagious. Curiosity is contagious. So if you have a dream or a goal, don't coop it up and keep it inside of you. Share it with others and be like, this is what I want to do. And you never know how somebody can help. And people want to help. We're living in this horrible divided country right now, and we tend to see the worst in others right now. But I still believe we're all inherently good. People want to see each other shine and to achieve their dreams, especially if they can help out. You never know who might know somebody, that can help you, know, and so I really encourage people now to really look back on what are some dreams that you have, or maybe you had this sense of curiosity that has dwindled, because we all were filled with curiosity at one point in our lives. Every kid is filled with curiosity, right? They're all asking why, or what is this, and so as we get older, most of us start losing that. And you asked earlier about my dad, that sense of curiosity, and I was fortunate enough to have a dad that I looked up to. He had his faults, of course, like everybody does. He's a human being, but he was just filled with curiosity all the way through his 80s. He was like this, he had this little kid mentality. And I think that's the most important thing you can do in life. And it's not just, it doesn't affect your personal life, not just that, but in your work life as well. Like if you're a leader, if you're a CEO, or you work in C-suite, or if you're a manager in some way, if you manage a team or something, if you have that sense of curiosity and you're genuinely curious to hear the points of view of the people that work with you, that is everything. I mean, that is like, that's what creates this culture of curiosity in the workplace, where you invite other people to share their thoughts and ideas, you know, and somebody that might be a brand new employee, like, hey, you're brand new at this company, you know, what's your perspective on our company from an outside view? You know, how do you think we can do better? What are some of our weaknesses? Like, perspective is everything. We all have our unique perspective. And I always talk about, like, you know, the power of zooming out and seeing the bigger picture of things, you know, like problems and obstacles seem much smaller. Like my vision for that eclipse photo was so broad that like all these obstacles were just a means to an end. Like when you're curious enough and when you persevere enough, like you find a way, you know, there's always a way around these problems, these dead ends. So anyway, sorry, I'm going on my soapbox.
No, man,
I
love it. Oh man, I could listen to this all day. Seriously, your stories, and then just some of your thoughts and philosophy. And man, I want to, as we kind of wrap this up here, I want to take it back to that moment for you on the Southwest plane. And like you said, like here we are living in this more divided than ever time. You know, at least in our lifetimes, probably the most that we've all personally felt this like pressure and this tension. And yet I think about this moment, you on this plane, and in that moment, you and all these people are part of this amazing moment in history. And it's like the Republican and Democrat thing doesn't come up and doesn't matter, right? Your background, your religion, your sexuality, none of that matters. It's just humanity, humans coming together, sharing this beautiful thing. Like socioeconomic status doesn't matter. The next Elon Musk might be sitting on the plane, you know, with you, and it just, none of that matters. You just connect. And I think, man, how much better off could we be if we could just realize that we're so much more alike than we are different, right? And there's so much more inside of us when it comes to our dreams and our hopes and our fears and our struggles, that it's like we share this like human experience. And if we could just engage in that, man, how much better off would we be? So gosh, what a beautiful picture.
That was beautifully said. You should be a speaker.
Jon, thank you so much for coming and just being so generous with your time and you know, dialing in from the road with us and giving us such a great perspective, some amazing things to think about, an opportunity for us to just take a pause in our own life and zoom out and look for that perspective. So a couple of things. Number one, Jon has so many more amazing stories. And I'm telling you, there's even another incredible story for the next eclipse. But we're going to hit pause today. And Jon has already agreed to come back to Stories That Move in the future. We're going to reconnect at some point down the road and have him come back and share the next eclipse stories. And who knows what happens between now and then, and some of the stories that he lives and the people that he meets along the way. Because it's literally amazing to spend a couple hours with Jon and hear his story. So we'll have you come back. But in the meantime, for people who are just, hey, I just want to see some more of this guy's work, connect with some things, your eclipse photo is actually available. You can buy a print through your website too. Help people connect with you. What's the best way? Through social media, through your website?
Yeah, thanks. The eclipse photo is the first photo that I released as what's called an open edition, as opposed to like limited editions like my other artwork. So we ordered thousands of them at once to make them as affordable as possible. So it's a good size print, 24 by 36 inch print. That's $100. That's a photographic print. So normally a size photo like that would be like a $500 print. So So I'm really excited that we were able to make that work with this printer. So yeah, you can get those just on my website, which is myname.com, joncarmichael.com.
No
John
H.
without the H.
Yeah,
J-O-N.
no H. Yes.
Yeah. The guy with an H that owns that is 85-year-old man in the UK that just won't give up his websites.
I love it.
Hey, all respect.
Hey,
man.
good for him. Good for John H.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so and then there's some of my talks there. If you're an event coordinator or if you work for a company that does events and stuff, I'm so passionate about speaking, as a keynote speaker for events. So reach out anytime if you'd like. And as far as socials, Instagram, Twitter, I will always call it Twitter.
Yeah, you and me both.
But as long as you just type in my name, you'll find me. My Instagram is Jon_Carmichael. So,
Perfect.
And then I'm planning on starting a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, I have a bunch of my speeches on there and my speaking reel that we just came out with. But I'm gonna, I'm on the road in my van, obviously. So I'm gonna try to start telling some stories along my journey. I just woke up to like a bald eagle flying around this morning. It was so awesome. So, but also I want to share some of the challenges because my heater broke and it was 13 degrees out and I've had a lot of frozen nights, so there's some challenges along the way too. So if anybody wants to try out van life, I will give you the best advice I can.
Oh, so cool. So cool. Well, John, thanks again, man. And really just, appreciate you and your story. Can't wait to connect with you again here in hopefully the not too distant future.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate you having me, and thanks for all your time too when I was out there in Indiana. And your studio is awesome. I love what you guys are all about. Stories that move. That's exactly it. Storytelling is so powerful, so I really appreciate you guys having me.
Awesome. Thank you. And to all of our listeners and viewers, and hey, let me underscore this one more time, get back on YouTube and watch some of this and check out some of John's images. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you again next time on Stories That Move. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Stories That Move, brought to you by Dream On Studios.
Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode. And remember, if you or your organization have a story you're eager to share with the world, Dream On Studios is here to bring that story to life.
Don't hesitate to reach out. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or visit our website at dreamonstudios.io. We understand how overwhelming it can be trying to bring your vision and story to life, but that's why we exist, and we've walked alongside hundreds of clients doing that very thing.
Yeah. We believe every story has the potential to inspire, to move, and to make a difference. Let's make yours heard.
Until next time, keep moving forward and keep telling those stories that matter.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time on Stories That Move.